Our next guest here on the program can be followed on twitter.com/Rick1042. He is a reporter for McKeen's Hockey, and we're happy to have him on the show. It is Rick Springhetti. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Not bad. How about you, Matthew?
I am very well. Thanks for spending some time with us. I know you're on the morning show on the weekends on occasion, but we're happy to have you on.
No, it's great to be on.
Now, Rick, I'm following the ticker. I'm seeing the news about what the Canadians are doing this weekend, and a couple of names popped up. And Stefano, I know you were looking at the numbers here because I don't have them offhand, but this gentleman Fournier that they signed, and then St-Pierre. But more importantly to me, Fournier, I look at him, I see size, I see fighting, I see scoring, I see a Memorial Cup ring now, if they give out rings, I'm not sure. But I see from Quebec. Why in the world was this guy not drafted?
He did start off his career in a very easy situation. Acadie Bathurst is an organization that always seems to be a little bit too much action, or if you'll say that organization with the Morissette owning that team and always getting. He's one of those old school owners, a little bit like Harold Ballard would be sometimes, and he makes very questionable, very volatile situations, very decisions that are very odd. Then he got traded to Lewiston as an 18-year-old. Not a very good team, but he managed to join his brother who had just been drafted, Dylan. Stayed there for a bit, seemed to like it there, was starting to get his game together, but it was always odd because Stefan was kind of playing a first-line role, but not really a first-line player. He kind of was just not quite good enough to be a first-line player, just not quite physical enough. His skating could have been a little bit better, but everything was close, and you kind of saw some signs that things were going to be coming together. And then Lewiston, closes up shop, basically disbands, and then he gets chosen by Victoriaville, stays there for a year, and then he gets to the Halifax Moosehead. And he said it himself, it's only once he got to the Halifax Moosehead that he kind of started getting used to playing in a role that suits him better. He started understanding the game better. He also started to feel really part of an organization and being wanted to be there for the long term or as an important part of the team, and he was assistant captain. And everything really came together this past year with the Halifax Moosehead, and that's probably why he got the invitation from the Habs, that you really saw the potential of what Stefan Fournier could be and not just a hint of what he could be.
So were you surprised that he wasn't drafted, or you kind of figured as much? And if so, do you think the Canadians got a bit of a steal here?
I was a bit disappointed that he wasn't drafted, not maybe in the first few rounds. He might have been more of a late-round pick. But again, as you mentioned, there was some physical tools to work with, and there was not an easy situation, and I think people maybe didn't give him enough credit for having to deal with these situations. Did they get a steal? Listen, I think he's a very good pickup. He's a good guy to have in your organization. I think he's going to bring a little bit of what Mark Bergevin keeps talking about, maybe a bit more size, a bit more character. And, you can't just have that in the NHL. You kind of got to have that in the AHL. And right now, I think Stefan Fournier is definitely a guy that could have a job in the American Hockey League. And he's a long shot to make it to the NHL. Let's be honest. Not many 20-year-olds get signed as free agents, are shoo-ins to make the NHL. But, all you need is a chance. And if this year things started coming together for him and he feels better about himself, maybe there's a lot more improvement going to happen, because a player does improve when they're in a good situation and things feel right. And Stefan Fournier, I think, is going to be properly used, finally, for once, as a third-line player that could give a little bit of secondary scoring, but who plays a straight-ahead game, up and down his wing, bangs the body a little bit, tries to take advantage of chances up close, but he still has to work a little bit on his skating, still has to work a little bit on his defensive positioning, still a little bit of chasing around in his own zone, but there's things to work with, and I'm sure the Hamilton staff is going to work hard with him on that.
Chatting with Rick Springhetti of McKeen's Hockey, talking here on Game Points with Matthew Ross. Rick, the other gentleman that might be of note for Habs fans that was signed as well was a guy by the name of Martin St-Pierre, a little less fanfare, I guess, and certainly a little less size.
Well, definitely. He's basically a guy who's run around all over the place in the American Hockey League, and he's played, I think, a little bit, very few games in the KHL. I think it must have been 15 games or something like that, and then he's bounced around Europe a little bit and then came back to the AHL. Another situation where you're kind of getting a player that understands his role. I think he's going to be happy to play with the Bulldogs. He's a French-Canadian kid, that actually is French-Canadian, but not from Quebec. I believe he's from the Ottawa area. But he's going to be happy to play there, and he's a veteran, and you're going to know what you're going to get from him, and you're going to be able to properly use him. Sometimes these kind of guys are important in your organization, not necessarily for Montreal, but they will help prepare guys to come up to Montreal. his vast experience in many organizations. He's bounced around in different leagues and different places all over North America. He kind of has seen a lot of things, and he's lived through a lot of things. And sometimes you want to get a guy in your organization that doesn't expect to make the NHL himself. He knows. I mean, he's 29. He's not going to really. He's an undersized 29-year-old. If he's not dreaming in Technicolor, I think he's going to give it all he has. But he's not expecting, I think, to play with the Habs. But if he does that, and he'll want to be a useful player of the organization because it might, it's a dream come for him, and a Frenchman who's going to play for the Montreal Canadiens. He probably grew up watching the team and supporting the team. He'll be happy to support younger players in the organization. There's going to be a lot of them coming up. A lot of them were there last year. There's going to be a few more coming up this year. Maybe a guy like Bourneval could use him as a role model or somebody to look up to, or Dumont if he's still going to play for Hamilton. You can't just have a bunch of guys, young guys, desperate to make the NHL in your AHL team, because you get a situation where they can't really, it's hard to go up to the next guy for advice because you're trying to fight this guy for a spot on your team. But you could maybe go up to a Martin St-Pierre and ask him some stuff.
He is Rick Springhetti. McKeensHockey.com, by the way, is the website as well. Rick1042 on Twitter.com if you want to ask him about any of the players as well. Rick, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Matthew, very much. Appreciate it.